Radio, here we go. Unmute myself. I think I am unmuted, aren't I? There we go. Right. We will see who comes on. My board's looking a bit short there. What I'm going to do is I'll give it a minute and then I'm going to start talking about failure. We hate it, don't we? We hate failure, but it's absolutely key to understand it and be okay with it. So, as 1 minute passed, we're going to get going. We're going to get going. So, let's ask some of the important questions. I was going to see if I have my red pen. Bear with me 2 seconds. I will get said pen. There it is. Put it over there. Right. Failure. What I want you to do, and it might be good if you're watching this on the replay, obviously, because there is a video about failure, but I think we can't hear this enough, is ask, and I'm going to write some questions up, just two, and then just maybe pause it and write down the answer to those questions. First of all, what is failure? And the second one, what do you make it mean? What do you make failure mean? So a lot of people go, what do you mean by that? And I know it's a bit, maybe a bit coachy talk, but what I mean by it is if you fell, what does that voice in your head tell you about you? That's basically what you make failure mean. So if you make a mistake, what is your immediate initial response to that? And that is really important. So have a look at what failure is and what do you make it mean. So if you're coming back, if you have paused it and you're coming back, let's address this one first. What is failure? What is it? And I'll tell you what, I'm not very organized here today. So I could say this is a failure because I haven't got my board rubber. So that's a good example. Even the little things, I go not so prepared as I normally am. What do I make that mean? The question here, the answer is whatever I want it to. I could make it mean I'm not good enough, that I'm shit, that I'm sloppy, or I could just make it mean that I forgot to get the board rubber out the bag. And it's our meaning that we apply to a failure that actually determines how we move forward. It's not actually the failure itself, it's our relationship with it. So failure is really, I think the clearest definition is that, I'll write it up because some people may want it on there. You didn't meet the expected or required result slash standard. That's it. That is all failure is. I know it's my writing. Every time I look at it, it looks like it's straight, but it's going downhill. Maybe I ought to do that. Straighten it up. So, oh, I must be bored up now. Look, here we go. See, perfectionism doesn't help at all. So, this is all failure means expected or required. So, you didn't meet. So, there was an expectation. Now, that could be you've gone for promotion, it could be you've gone out to do something, to go and arrest someone, um, sit in an exam, a board. Oh, it could be anything, couldn't it? For me, it was like doing DIY, cutting skirting board and fitting it. Um, there's just loads. But so you've set this expectation, or maybe the expectation has been set for you, and you didn't meet it. That's it. That's all it is. And what we want to do is look at the facts. We always want to be looking at the facts. So if you go, the facts are you didn't say like the pass mark for an exam, like say that you do your CID exam or sergeant exam, say the pass mark, I can't remember what it is now, so it's like 55%, and you got 50%. That was the required standard. So it's not expected, it's required 55, and you got 50. That's it. That is all failure is. But really, what it is a mental construct because it's just like you've got this standard and you haven't met it. But then what we do is because of our brain, because our human brain, which is so amazing but also works against us now, is we give it a meaning. So that's what failure is. But then the actual problem is the meaning we give it, the meaning we give to it. And that is absolutely key. And most people with a fear of failure will make it mean something about them. So here you are, you. Here's the thing you're going to do, and you didn't meet that standard. And then we make that mean something. And it often goes along the lines of, I'm worthless, I'm not good enough. I mean, there's probably quite a few, but they're the main ones. Or I'm a failure. But what you've got to realize is there's a gap between this failure, this not meeting this standard. I'm trying to think of drawing something better here. So yeah, so here you go. Let's draw this. There's your exam, 60% pass mark. So, and you get 50, you got 55% pass mark and you get 50%. So you've fallen below the standard. So between that happening and the feeling that you experience is this space. And this means nothing until this happens. And it's as simple as that. So pass mark, pass equals 55%, and you achieved 50%. That is not in itself the problem. It's this that's the problem. And what happens is when we make it mean these sorts of things, I'm worthless, I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, the first thing we go to is blame. We blame the organization, we blame all of those things, we blame lots of things, the person that farted during the exam that put you off, something else. And what we don't ever do is we don't look at this. And often because we're not aware of it, it's subconscious. But this is why failure is so good and we want to experience it because when you experience it, what it would do is bring up all of your beliefs about it. So we don't want to avoid it. A lot of people go, oh, I want to change my beliefs about it and then do it. And that you can do that. But I think a lot of people are trying to change their beliefs about failure and then still not, and then are still not failing. Whereas what we want to do is be willing, we have to be willing to fail to identify these beliefs. Now, I want to talk a bit about automatic responses. So our defaults. Now, as I was talking to you then, explaining that stuff, I suddenly had a thought that I'd clicked the wrong link because no one's turned up. That I clicked the wrong link and I was people were wanting to come in. And instantly, and you probably wouldn't have even noticed this, I felt this anxiety because I had this thought, I fucked up. I fucked up. But this is the key, especially with failure. We want to manage our automatic default responses. And the way we do that is we're not going to catch all these feelings, all these thoughts. We're not going to catch all of those thoughts. It's just often these thoughts are unconscious, so we can't catch them all. But what we have is these wonderful things, which most people don't like, is our feelings. And our feelings, don't know I felt the need, are the gateway to our beliefs, our thoughts. Because as I was just actually recording, I literally just suddenly went, "Oh," I just felt this instant anxiety, like panic. Now, once I pause with that and I go, why do I feel that way? I go, it's because I think I fucked up. Now, actually, I'm pretty sure I haven't. I'm pretty sure I clicked on the right link, but our brains are always trying to second guess and all this and try to protect us. But when you realize is these feelings we feel when we do fail, they are a gateway to what we're thinking. So this is why our feelings are so important, because if we're not tapped into this, what happens is we miss out on the beliefs that are driving us. And what you've got to do is, or what I'd suggest you do is identify these beliefs and see, do they serve you? Are they of any benefit to you? Because what these feelings do, these are our beliefs. Then we have these feelings. And then those feelings drive our behavior, our action. And that is basically the model. So we have circumstance, actually, just a bit of red going on. We have our circumstance. Then we have our thoughts, which is a belief. Remember, a belief is just a thought we've had over and over again. That creates our feeling. That drives our action, which is also our behaviors. And that gives us a certain result in our life. So like here, if you've got 50%, so if what you do is, I failed would not even be in the circumstance line. The circumstance, this is just the facts. What would be in there is just this. So you could interpret the facts, maybe a couple of ways, as in pass mark was 55%, I got 50, or I was 5% below the pass mark. So if we put that 5% below pass mark, and then you go, how do you feel? And you might feel really deflated. And you think you're feeling deflated because you're 5% below the pass mark. But the reason you're deflated is because of the meaning your brain has automatically attached to it. Which, like I say, could be, which is a really common one, I'm not good enough. And then we explore what happens when you think I'm not good enough, feel deflated. What do you do? Well, you probably beat yourself up. My wife's in the background. Nikki, what else do you do when you think you're not good enough? Yes, avoid. Anything else? I'll get her to do the hard work. Yeah, don't put your hand up. You probably can't hear us because of my mic. Don't put a hand up. So yeah, all this stuff you see that you're avoiding, you're beating yourself up. Like we said earlier, you're blaming. Oh, not yeah, you don't take responsibility. And then that will give you struggling with responsibility there. Spelling it, not taking it. And then we go, and that will give you a result, which I will flick the camera down so you can see a bit more. And that result, when you're beating yourself up, you're avoiding, you're judging yourself, you don't put your hand up, you're blaming, you're not taking responsibility, is what that does is that reduces your self worth even more. So, and you're probably less likely to want to try stuff, so more likely to fail in the future because you're not, a lot of people, what I see people do is another action is they give up. You go, I'm not doing that again. So they are actually failing then failing ahead of time because they don't want to do it. But all because they're thinking, I'm not good enough. The meaning that they are giving to the failure, to the not hitting the required or expected standard. Now, what we want to do is retell our story around failure. We want to change our relationship with it. And a relationship is just what you think about it. It's the meaning that you give it. And the best way to do that is with the model and put failure in this circumstance line. What you think about it. So you want to see what you think and feel, and you realize that you're going to have lots of beliefs that you have about failure. But they're not yours, they're just ones you've learnt. You've just adopted them. And then you can put them in the model and go, do they benefit you? So if you go, I hate failure, how does that make you feel? Maybe if you think I hate failure, you might think, you might you might feel resistant and then you avoid it. And then you may be in a job, in an area of your life you just don't want to be in. So you can see that the failure isn't the problem, the situation isn't the problem, it's your relationship with the failure. And what I always say to people is think of failure, and I learned this from time hackers, is think of failure as a person. Think of it as a person. Like, what is your relationship with it? If failure walks in the room, what would your relationship be? And you realize it's not going away. It is part of life. We will make mistakes. So we want to retell our story about failure. Mine was always that it meant something about me. Basically, what I made failure mean was, which is a really common one, I was a failure. So I had somewhere along the line attached my value, my worth to these external things like achievement, success, being able to do stuff like DIY. If I couldn't do some DIY, I just get so frustrated and angry. And that's always a good sign, I think. If you get so frustrated and angry, it's often because you're making it mean something about you. But as soon as I release that and I realize, the fact that I can put some skirting board on doesn't mean I'm a good person. I know people that can put skirting boards on and they're not particularly good people. So that's not the defining point. That is just something that can be achieved. If I can put a case file together, it doesn't mean I'm a good person. It just means I can put a case file together. So as soon as I started redefining this, suddenly I actually lent into it and I learnt more. And my relationship with failure now is it's where the learning is. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. It's not always like that. I hear, some people maybe in the position where they just go, yeah, I just love it. I can see it. And I can see that the more I fail, the more I learn. But there's sometimes in those moments when I get something wrong, my brain automatically makes it mean that makes it mean something about me. But it's catching that and realizing that doesn't mean anything's gone wrong, putting that safeguard in place for that default, and then going, oh, this feels really bad because I'm making it mean I'm not good enough. I'm a failure. And then you can move yourself out of it. It's not that we eliminate all of this. It's just that we actually learn to move ourselves out of it. And each time that sort of shrinks down. So this is something that I found really key, is changing that relationship with what your story is about failure. Because remember, it is just a story. If you're telling yourself that making a mistake means that you're not good enough. That is a story. That is made up. Even if someone's told you, it's still a story. It's a bullshit story. And if it's not serving you, you get to change that story. And what I like to do is start working on new stories about failure, looking for evidence of how failure is actually beneficial, it's helpful, how it's helped other people, and maybe helped me in the past, the learning I've got, and then start taking small steps. It's not just an overnight. And this is my other belief. It's a learning opportunity. Because I believe that to be true. Because any one thing I want to say is anything, if you've got a story about failure, that is going to be your belief system. And the reason that's so true to you is because you believe it. It's thoughts you have that you believe to be true. And when you think it, it creates an emotional reaction and you believe it. So you can't just change and go, oh, I think failure is amazing. What you got to do is go, you got to think of those thoughts you're thinking, that new story, and then go, how does that feel in my body? So when you think failure is the gateway to learning, I now can feel excitement. I can feel that excitement. Rewind a few years ago, there's no way I felt excitement about that. So it's like bridging and thinking new things that we believe and basically disconnecting from our old story about failure and moving towards a new one. And what's really good is going, what is the story I want to believe? What's my future self? What do they believe about failure? And realize then you can just work towards that. Because now, when I think it's a learning opportunity, I go, yeah, it is. It's just an experiment. It's an opportunity to gather information, to gather data. And I can see that's factual because every time I get something wrong, I've then got information that I can move forward with. So that is very believable for me. But something that happens is with failure is the reason a lot of us don't like it and move away from it is because the first thing is what we make it mean. And then we change that meaning and we still go, it still feels pretty horrible. It still feels really uncomfortable. Well, but of course it does. And when I explain this, this will make perfect sense. You imagine if failure didn't feel uncomfortable. Can you imagine that if failure did not feel uncomfortable? You didn't have it. Well, what it does when it feels uncomfortable, it draws your attention to the problem. So you've got the failure, so you haven't met this required standard. I put failed in there because we have to be okay with thinking of it as fine, but just think of this as not met with the required standard, and you might feel disappointed. But that's because your brain's going, something didn't work. Your brain is drawing your attention to the problem, to the thing. You wanted something, you had that expected or required standard, and you didn't get it. So it feels uncomfortable. That draws your attention to that problem, and then you can go about solving it. But the problem is, we don't like feeling this feeling. So we try and get rid of it. We try and eat it away. We try and drink it away. So even when we've removed our story of failure and turned it into a positive, it still feels uncomfortable. Because if you want something, you don't get it, your body goes, I'm going to produce some discomfort so you know you're not hitting that target. If you didn't have that expectation in your head, you wouldn't feel the discomfort. And that's why often what people do is, especially when they're going for exams, they go, oh, I don't really, I don't think I'm going to pass. I've set myself quite a low standard. And what they're doing is they are setting themselves up to fail because they don't want to feel this. And when you realize, do you know what? Actually, what about if you're okay with this and you see this as an indicator, you see that feeling as an indicator that something just hasn't gone the way you wanted it, and then you can readjust and go again, suddenly you're not going to be derailed by failure. But what I see people doing is They set their sights so low because they don't want to experience this. They don't want to experience that discomfort they feel when we fell. So they go, well, I haven't, well, they don't put so much effort in. I haven't studied so much. I haven't really put all the effort in. I'm not expecting to pass this time. I'm just giving it a go. And all that's happening in these situations is their, just say like their expectation. I don't know, I'm going to draw this. Just say their expectation is here, but they hit here. There, that gap is the discomfort. Now, if you don't like that discomfort, what you can sometimes do is bring your expectation down. So then there's no gap and there's no disappointment. But what you realize is because you could set that expectation and you could meet it. And then if you don't meet it, you look, see what worked, what didn't work, and then go again. But it's because we don't want to feel this feeling, this discomfort, that we actually lower our expectations and we keep ourselves boxed. And this is why it's so important to change that relationship with failure, because you can set your expectations high, you can fail, you can learn what worked, what didn't work, and then you can go again. It's so, so important. So, what I want you to take from that is it is going to be uncomfortable. Failure is going to be uncomfortable. It's fine. It's supposed to be. It's just drawing your attention to a perceived problem. Um, yeah, I just want to make sure that there was something I wanted to cover for you. I think that's nearly it, actually. Yeah. So really, with failure, what you're doing is what I find is one of the best ways, what we call dares of the day. And what I mean by that is you've got to go out, you've got to fail, you've got to go out and experience it, and then feel that feeling. That's the key. So you fail and you feel the feeling. And what you do is you stop fearing this feeling. It doesn't feel so bad. What these are like the step process that I suggest for people is that you go out, you fail, so you set your standard and you don't meet it. Okay? And then what you do is you feel the discomfort. And then you measure your gains. You measure the benefits. And that, then what happens is you stop fearing it, you start seeing it. Actually, you see the advantages from it. Yes, it's uncomfortable in the moment. You've redefined your story of failure. You've gone out, you failed, you felt the discomfort of it, and then you measured your benefits, and then you redefine your relationship with it. And then what you'll realize is anything that you want to do, you can start doing quicker. Now, a lot of you in the police, especially, will go, yeah, but I can't fail because if I make a mistake, someone will die. Most of your mistakes, they don't. They don't, I promise you. But the problem is, when you fear making mistakes, when you fear failing, what you do is you don't make decisions. And then you end up failing anyway because things take longer. You stay in this sort of perceived safe place. But the fact is, if you're human, you will make mistakes. And actually, your brain learns quicker. Your brain does learn quicker. When you make a mistake, you make the mistake, your brain goes, oh, that didn't work. And it creates a new pathway to find out what does work. So much easier than being told something. And getting it wrong is proof that it actually helps you learn quicker. But I think it's that acceptance that no matter how high a risk job, and you go, we can't make mistakes in this job. I don't know any job where people say they can't make mistakes where they haven't made a mistake. I've spoken to people that are police, fire, special forces, all these areas, And they make mistakes. People get it wrong. But this is why that relationship with yourself is so key. So key. Because when you accept there are going to be mistakes made, I am going to make mistakes, and you've got your own back. You've got your own back no matter what. And you're willing to feel that discomfort. That is what self confidence is. Confidence is the byproduct, it's the end product. Self confidence is this. And you can go out and go, yeah, I'm sure I am going to make mistakes, but I've got my own back and I'm not going to beat myself up and I'm going to learn from it. And people go, well, yeah, then you just be sloppy and all this. Well, I see people that are trying not to make mistakes and actually they're over perfecting and they're dropping the ball on other things. But when you've got really clear values, like if one of your values is to work hard and to do the job to the best of your ability, that's not perfectionism, that's a really good value. Then what you're going to do is you're still going to perform at a very high level. But when you don't want to fail and your failures mean something about you, you will not perform at the high level. You will not perform at the highest level you can because it, you'll you'll always want to protect yourself, your sense of self. Whereas if when you get that internally, as we talked about last week, and when you talk about that internally, when you deal with that internally, you can go out, you can go into the world, give it your best shot, make the mistakes, learn from it, and come back. And what you'll do is your trust in yourself and your confidence will grow exponentially. And then you'll want to try more things. And you'll want to try more things. Okay. So that is what I believe about failure. And I was the worst one. I used to hate it. I think some of the best examples for me, as well as work, because I like sort of cross-related, is like with my kayaking. I I know when my fear is high, it's because I don't want to make a mistake. Now there's consequences to it. When I'm paddling rivers like the Upper Dart, if I get that wrong, that could potentially hurt. But it's interesting. The other day, I tried something. I tried a new move, a new line that I hadn't tried before. And I've been putting off for ages. And I thought, oh, do you know what? If I get it wrong, I get it wrong. And I went over, got it wrong, but was absolutely buzzing. And then this rapid upside down, come up. I was okay. But I learned so much more from that than all the YouTube clips, from all the tips and techniques, because that was all people have told me, because that was all theory. From going in, doing it, and failing, I now know what I've done wrong. But to be able to fail, you need commitment, you need courage, and that good relationship with self. And your life will fundamentally change when you have those things. And I find like now I enjoy my paddling more and it progresses quicker because I'm failing more. When I didn't want to get it wrong, I stayed at the level that I was comfortable at. And I drew it small a minute ago, so I'm going to draw this bigger because I quite like this. You sort of think if you've got this sort of graph and this is your expectation, so maybe this is your expectation of where you want to be. That's it. That's where you want to be. But this is actually where you end up. Just remember, it's that gap. The bigger that gap, the bigger the discomfort. But that discomfort doesn't mean it's gone wrong. Even if your gap is like here, and you've got this lot of discomfort because you haven't hit the target, you're so far away, you're going to evaluate it and go, what went well, what didn't go well, what do I need to improve on? And then you're going to close that gap. But often it's sort of pushing yourself and finding out what you're capable of that really makes that difference. And I know, especially in policing, it's the mistakes I've made where all the learning is. And we all know this. We all know this. We all go, well, why did you know that? Well, I messed it up once. I've been stood in court, asked about some unused material. that actually I raised. I said, "Oh, I've got that in my bag," but I'd never told anyone about it. I made a mistake. It was my first time. But I've never forgot that again. I've never forgot that again. And like I say, there are sometimes consequences, but actually, when we can overcome that fear of failure, we get all our agency and control back. And really, what we're talking about with failure is what we really don't like is judgment. It all comes down to that way it feels, but that's what we're avoiding. And that doesn't kill us. So we need to be able to change our relationship with this and then move forward. So that is my bit on failure. The only thing I'm going to leave you with, and this is, I think I got this from Stephen Covey. I love this. If you think of this target, this is Stephen Covey, The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. If you think of this is your target. Yeah. And that's where you want to aim. A lot of people think ready, aim, fire. So they're ready and they're taking ages to aim and they're trying to get it on target and they never fire. But actually, if you go ready, fire, aim, you take the shot, you miss, and then you know how much to adjust. Whilst you're aiming, you don't actually know how far you're going to be off. So it's quicker to fire it. And there's so many examples of this. I was reading a book, and I think it might have been Atomic Habits, but it was saying about perfectionism and the fear of failure. And they gave some students, they gave them two different tasks. One was to take the perfect picture, and the other group were to take as many pictures as they could. Now, the ones that had their goal was to take the perfect picture didn't produce anything. They didn't actually produce anything because they were messing about with it. They're farting around trying to get this perfect picture. But the other ones just had to take as many pictures as they could. So they're going click, 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 click. They're taking all these pictures. And then, of course, as they look at it, they go, oh, actually, that's a bit dark. I could change the exposure on that. I could do this. So they were making the changes. Ended up, that group had the better picture, which is a great example of how the perfectionism, the fear of failure, actually produces lower quality results. And it's been shown time and time again. So redefining that fear of failure, learning to experience it, and actually, just leaning into it rather than away from it and dropping that perfectionism. So that's failure. If you've got any questions, bring it to the group and I will catch you later. Take it steady.